Welcome to Close Read. I'm Alejandro Collini, and today I am talking about David Foster Wallace novel, The Pale King. The book was left unfinished at the time of the author's death, and he did something that we're not really allowed to talk about on Instagram. So just in the name of sensitivity, I'll let you know that he was the lead in a Thomas Jane HBO series from the early 2000s. He leaves behind this unfinished manuscript, follow-up to Infinite Jest, in high demand. It is published despite not being complete, and it is an amazing, interesting work of literature. The book begins as a standard book, as standard as a DFW book can be. It's got his sort of classic heightened reality style, his attention to minutia, his emotional complexity. The setting is the IRS, so you're meeting characters at the IRS, you're acclimating to the setting, and then suddenly the book just stops, and the author sort of comes out from behind a partition and goes, "Hey, it's me, David Foster Wallace, not the narrator, but the guy." And I have to tell you something. At the beginning of this book, there is a disclaimer, a legal disclaimer, that is at the beginning of all fiction books saying, this is fiction. This isn't true. It's not based on anything. It's not based on any real people. And I'm telling you right now, that's not true. This is real. This is nonfiction. It's based on real people. This is what happened to me in 1985, the year I worked at the IRS. Okay. I'm sorry to be silly about this. This is revolutionary. This is like Borges, yo. This is death of the author. DFW, of all people, knows the most dishonest thing a writer can say about their work is, this is true. I went upstairs and wrote, it is midnight, the rain is beating on the windows. It was not midnight, it was not raining. So why do this? He admits that it makes everyone's life harder. The publisher's annoyed by this. The editor is annoyed by this. The lawyers are annoyed by this. He could easily have just written what actually happened, changed the names, called it fiction, gotten it published, done what all writers do, frankly. Why insist on this conceit of truthfulness? And the even more confusing thing is that there's two separate books here, one of which is inarguably a fiction book. There's fictional characters who the author knows an omniscient amount about, an amount that David Foster Wallace, the in-universe person, can't know. There's David Cusk, who has his obsessive sweating problem. There's Meredith Rand, who was hospitalized for terminal prettiness, very DFW. And if this sort of fiction book is about anything other than the IRS, it's about how the body interacts with the world, how outside forces act on the body, how the body influences outer things. And it's very interesting, but there's a separate nonfiction book starring David Foster Wallace in which he comes to the IRS and is given the wrong ID badge, and eventually he's accused of impersonating a different employee. This does not in any way, he's never in the same room with the fictional characters. There's a fiction book, and then there's this book that pretends it's nonfiction, but also is written in the same heightened reality as the fiction. And it's like, well, when were these two things gonna cohere? When were these gonna come together? How do you combine a book that insists it's nonfiction with a book that admits it's fiction? And the weird thing is this book is 550 pages long. Normally, when a novel is unfinished but published, they're like, oh, well, the author did finish a draft of it, but they didn't finish editing it. This is a fragment. It doesn't end. It barely begins. If the novel were to continue on at this pace, I would imagine it being over 2,000 pages long. It is just kind of a staggering thing to think about. It's obviously one of those things that gives you that weird feeling of like, oh, I wish that guy hadn't done that so I could read his book. And then obviously Foster Wallace is a figure of some, he's done abusive things. He's not someone that we want to sit around peering out the rainy window and pining for David Foster Wallace. He's a figure whose legacy has bin complicated and tarnished by his personal behavior. And so that's always something to keep in mind. I don't really believe in separating art from artists. Yeah, this is an awkward end, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video.